Howdy boys, Paul here with you today. I got a topic that's been bugging me personally for a while, and one of my buddies he's about to pay a fine price for this issue, a cp4. How good or how bad it is. It's so controversial, and people are just debating left and right. What I'm saying about it is people are saying, oh, they're great, and other people are like, oh, they're a pile of junk. I believe my buddy cp4 went out at 70,000 miles, guys. 70,000 miles. That's a little bit of a nutbuster, if you know what I mean. 70,000 miles, your truck ain't even broken in, and your fuel system's to crap. So let me talk a little bit about his situation so y'all can understand how serious it is for some of you guys that don't understand what the real deal is about these cp4s and why people love the cp3s over the cp4s. So more or less, the thing goes kaboom. It doesn't just go kaboom. The cp4 doesn't just die out. Let's just take the VP44, like that truck over there. You know, the lift or the high pressure pump croaks out, and for the most part, that's it. You just got to put another VP44, and off you go back to trucking. Now, the cp4, when it goes kaboom, it sends metal particles down the pipeline, and it takes out your injectors. Yes, you're going to scream. There's a little kit or a little screen you got to have in your line is going to catch all that stuff. Great. I don't think it's going to do the whole trick. Does it help? Yes, but I wouldn't rely on that screen. Anyway, so as an owner of 319s, I got a CP4. Yes, I run Cummins, and now Cummins started using the CP4s as well. That's a big old concern for me because I just changed out a CP3 at 500 plus thousand, not because it had to be changed out, just because I was like, hey, enough's enough. 500,000 is plenty of a life out of you, and the CP3 was, in my opinion, perfectly fine, but the high mileage got me a little scared. I don't know how much longer that CP3 went. Now, flip the page and do a CP4. You see them all over. The life expectancy is just unpredictable. Like, people get 300,000-400,000 out of them. At least so we're claiming. Some are claiming so. And then there's guys that are just blowing them left and right. And I did my own extensive research, and what I came up with. So the GM guys are screaming one thing, or saying one thing. It needs a lift pump. It needs a stronger lift pump. Okay. Ford guys are like, hey, we're fine. I don't know what the fuss is all about. For the most part, most of the Ford guys are fine with it. They know there's an issue with those CP4s. But for the most part, I'm not seeing a whole lot of Ford guys complaining. Now, the Ram guys, they're happy with their CP3s. And now that they got their CP4s, it's quite the chat on the forums. In my opinion, what it seems to all come down to, after extensive research, the construction of the CP3, the construction of the CP4, some are going to say they self-destruct. Yes, to a certain extent. Yeah, you could have that roller twist on you and it'll self-destruct. What I'm about to say isn't going to help in that case, but for the most part, what the dealerships are claiming, or for the most part, GM is claiming, and Ford in some cases as well, when there's an issue with the CP4s, they're saying bad fuel, and they are correct. They are correct to a certain extent. It's not very honorable what they're doing. If they know it's, you know what I mean, it doesn't really, if this pump isn't really going to survive in the U.S. diesel world, or should I say the quality control in the diesel in the United States seems to be fairly low. A. B, this seems to be the biggest issue that I see. Guys are running their fuel tanks low. Now, the fuel tank has a whole drop-in little, I call it a little bucket thing, where the pickup tube, the return tube all goes down to a little motor down there. So you could call it your floater. It's all attached to it. It's the assembly, the lift pump assembly. Well, the issue that lies there, all this stuff sits in a bucket. So, like this little bucket. So when the level gets lower than as tall as the bucket is, you're going to have to get diesel from the bottom. In my honest opinion, I think this is the biggest issue. Guys aren't feeling power loss. Guys aren't feeling anything wrong with running your fuel tank. If you're going to say quarter tank, heck, there's a reason why I still got a quarter tank, right? If there's an issue, the manufacturer should address it. Well, the manufacturer are not gonna address it, because it's just, why are they gonna leave you with extra, you know, why are they gonna leave you with so much more diesel in your tank? So Paul's conclusion and Paul's rule of thumb is always run your tank down to a third of a tank and refuel. I know some of you guys have it as a rule of thumb and others don't. The biggest issue, in my honest opinion, the CP4s have such high tolerances. It just can't take any abuse whatsoever. It has to run in ideal conditions. So that ideal condition, very importantly, not just generally, but very importantly, to fuel up proper diesel. Well, like, duh, Paul, that's a no-brainer. But I'm talking like the small mom and pop little fuel station with low volume going through there. That's probably not the ideal condition. Don't search for prices, because you will fry your rear end on it. I mean, you're gonna be sizzling. Do not go to a small volume place. And what's the biggest issue? As much as they filter and refine this diesel, there's still water in that diesel, and the less flow, obviously, the more it's going to settle. You know how the settling process goes. So what do I do for my fleet? First of all, I know what kind of fuel I want in my trucks. Before you go shopping for price, shop for quality, because that will give you a lot better bang for your buck than you saving 20 cents at the pump or 10 cents at the pump. So your supplier. I like Mobil, I like Shell, I like Chevron, all those guys. Exxon seems to be one of the bigger companies out there. So what do? I hook up with Petro and TA. That's a Mobil product. Those guys run their Mobil product at the pumps. State to state varies about regulations and all that. But I found a fuel station that has higher, in my opinion, higher standards. You could see it in their business, you could see it in their buildings, and you could see it at the pumps. So that told me quite a bit right there. Now, the diesel alone, I used to drive a 14 tuned truck, and I'm about to put a company on blast. What puzzled my mind is my buddy screwed up a set of injectors at Love's, and they would not man up to it, own up to it. So what happened is, fueled up, parked for the night. He was doing hot shotting, and for whatever reason, his truck started sputtering during the night. He started, revving it up a little bit. He's like, dude, I just fueled up. I'm running out of diesel. I can't be freezing at this temperature. It was in the 20s. Yeah, it was cold, but there's no reason to freeze. So it turned out to be Love's fueled up a lot of water, and his fuel tank took out his injectors. All right, strike one. I heard bad things about Love's, never paid attention. I fuel up. I'm towing heavy, and I fuel up out Love's, and my truck, for the life of me, ain't pulling for crap. Well, that's interesting. A few months goes by, same scenario. I'm pulling into Love's. It was a very convenient place. It's between Spokane and Seattle. And I'm fueling up at Love's again, and that darn thing ain't pulling for the life of me. I'm like, what the frick is going on with this Love's station? And that was the last straw I had for Love's. And I told my guys, whatever you do, avoid Love's. Flying J, Petro, that assortment of fueling stations. So I don't know, Love's, what you're doing. And I'm not the first one to put y'all on blast. You guys have good buildings, but your fuel sucks. I have not heard anyone, not a single person in the Pacific Northwest that said Love's has good fuel. Everyone says the same thing. Good showers, good buildings, crap fuel. Of course, company drivers don't care. They fuel up and they go. But nevertheless, so back to the point. I'm way off subject. The CP4s, they need a lot of fuel. They need that fuel bowl bucket, whatever you want to call it, your pickup, to be always submerged in fuel. You're going to say, Paul, it's just a heating matter. No. It's air in your fuel that's the biggest issue here. So A, have fresh fuel in there, and B, always have that bucket submerged in fuel. The more fuel you have in there, think of it this way, micro air bubbles, it's splashing around, and the lower it is, right, or should I say the lower the bucket sits, the more there's pressure, that fuel, having pressure and fluid, and the higher your air is it's just gonna escape faster. I know we're talking about like really nitpicking at stuff here, but in a perfect world, guys, having what we have and what we have to work with here, the CP4s, half a tank and fuel up, half a tank and fuel up. And that's pretty ridiculous to an average Joe just that has a single tank. You know, that's another thing. These guys out there that are hot shotting, you know, they probably have 60 to 100 gallons behind them in their bed, and then they have the stock one. So even at 60 plus 30 and 90 and half a tank, you're only losing 15 gallons. So give or take, you still got some usable diesel, and it sucks, guys. It's very dumb what's going on here. So all in all, that air, guys, that air and the low quality of fuel, because that pump has very high tolerance. A little air, or should I say not a whole lot of air, and a little bit of low grade fuel or low quality of fuel will take out your cp4. And sadly, we the consumer have to pay for it, because in a perfect world that cp4 is just fine of a pump. I don't know where, but in the United States obviously it isn't. So to eliminate that air situation as much as possible, guys, just keep a lot of fuel in your tank. And this is ridiculous, Paul, why didn't they just go with the cp3? You know, I seriously considered of throwing let me shut down this radar. I considered throwing that kit in the cp3s, and there's nothing wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but not everyone's going to throw that kit. So it's more or less, this video is for those guys that want to prevent and prolong the life of the cp4. I think it's just a matter of habit, you know, not running your fuel tank down. And a lot of guys have it in diesels, they understand this, but the cp4s are a lot more touchy to it. You know, the cp3 will survive through quite a bit. Don't ask how I know. I've put my cp3, my personal truck, through a lot of tests and stuff. But the cp4 is just very unforgiving, and it's aluminum casing. Once it starts scarring, tearing, it just keeps going. It's self-destructing at that point. So yeah, that's it, man. As always, boys, may you have a mighty fine day, and be careful where you fuel up. Keep your diesel fresh, and always, what's up, dude? Keep your good amount of fuel in your tank, so you can just keep that fuel tank well fueled, so that air doesn't get sucked into the pickup tube as much as possible, and you keep trucking instead of being on the side of the road or paying big bucks for new injectors, new lines. I think you can probably wash out your lines, but new pumps and new injectors are not cheap. I think that's what it comes down to. It really does. That's why some guys are seeing hundreds of thousands of miles out of their cp4, and others are, like my buddy, sadly, he only has 70,000 miles on his truck, and it's done. Like, just done. Anyways, guys, God bless you.